Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have something very cool to take a look at. We've got ourselves another Creature Preacher release, but what's interesting about this is actually my first opportunity to take a look at one of his Kaiju figures. He produces all kinds of really cool sort of, vintage movie monster dinosaurs and stuff like that. We've seen a lot of that here through the course of my reviews on my channel of Creature Preacher's work, but one thing that I don't always bring up to everyone's attention, and I really should do more of, is the fact that he creates kaiju, and I've never reviewed any of them before, so I'm really happy, really excited to actually have one here to take a look at, and some of you obviously may be able to recognize who it is just by the, thumbnail and the title of the video, but visually you may be able to notice who it is. It is Baragon, and if you are unfamiliar with who Baragon is a giant monster who originally debuted in the film Frankenstein Conquers the World, but has also made quite a few appearances throughout the years in Godzilla films. And it's always been a monster that I've really been a big fan of. There are actually a few from the Godzilla series outside of Godzilla that I've always just loved, which would be Titanosaurus, Varan, Baragon, and Gorosaurus, just to name a few that are like some of my favorites from the Godzilla franchise, and having an actual Baragon here from Creature Preacher is really exciting. Now you can obviously tell that he has created this Baragon in a way where it looks obviously like Baragon, but has Creature Preacher's own personal touch to it, and it really is phenomenal. Like, honestly, a really, really impressive model, like even more impressive than I was expecting, and I'm obviously very familiar at this point with Creature Preacher's work, but this thing is definitely a standout release from him. And on top of the very large, beautiful edition we have here fully painted, he also sent over this smaller one. Now, I'm like tempted to paint the models that he sends, although I've been just so slammed with stuff to paint, I haven't really had a chance to get any of Creature Preacher's work that he sent me painted up, which I am fully intending on doing soon. But with this smaller version, like, I love this color that it came in. I don't know if I'm going to paint it. Like, I don't know if I can repaint this color away because it's such a really cool, really interesting color that I just genuinely enjoy the figure. But as per usual, when it comes to a Creature Preacher release, you can purchase them in different size ranges. You can also purchase them painted or unpainted. You just have to see what is available on his Etsy shop. So again, if you are interested in an unpainted one, you can always go that route, or you can get the fully painted version, which is what this beauty is over here. So without further ado, we're going to jump to a closer look at this right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Baragon, you can straight away see that it looks awesome. You can also see there's quite a bit of life and just generally attitude here in the face of our Baragon. You can kind of see almost like a snarling sort of a look that Baragon has here. We can also take notice to the fact that all the teeth are sculpted out. They are all painted. They're painted with a yellowish tone of color, and they look really cool. The eyes are also painted, and you can see the eyes have a nice big black pupil for them, and they also have kind of a gloss coat, but the entire figure has kind of a gloss coat. But one thing that's really cool about the eyes specifically you might be picking up on is the fact that he has kind of like a metallic shine there over them, almost like a metallic, like almost a gold coloration that you see there on the eyes. Might be a little hard to pick up on just because the light is glaring off of it so badly, but it's definitely there, which Creature Preacher always does those little things to his models and loves to add in those kind of metallic tones in certain areas of his figures, and it's almost become kind of part of his charm. But you can see again that the actual texturing and everything looks good. There's lots of just kind of movement, wrinkles, creases, all sorts of detail, shown throughout the entire model. You can see a nice big bulky throat here on the underside, and he's done a phenomenal job of painting this. You can see there are many different tones of color included throughout the entire model, just really subtle alternate tones. Like you can see just slight hints of different tones of color added, which really gives this again a spectacular appearance. And you can continue to see that as you move up into the extra large ears of our Baragon. You can see that there's even variation of color in here within the ears. You can almost see like some greenish browns and some orangish browns and stuff inside the ears. You can also see some nice creasing and everything throughout the inside of the ears, again giving you just a ton of really nice detail. We also have a horn, of course, for our Baragon, very nicely sculpted. You got some nice texturing to it as well, and some nice paintwork. Again, you can see variations of like greens, really cool, really vibrant greens here on the underside of the horn, but then we transition to a nice variation of a brown here on the upper side of the horn, and it looks super, super cool. We also have some more kind of spikes here running along the back of the head of our Baragon, and they are painted in a similar fashion to what we see on that larger horn right there. We can also see as we look up here on the top of the head that he darkens the coloration quite nicely around those spikes running along the top of the head, and that darker tone overtakes the majority of the head there. You can see again lots of really nice texturing to the skin up there as well, but as you move down the spinal column, it also kind of follows along the spinal column, which is also really nicely sculpted. Like you can see kind of like some small ridges running along the spinal column of our Baragon, but you can see that that darker tone runs down through the course of the spinal column, and as we move down you can see how the detailing of the back is sculpted out, and in between these areas you can see that he's also highlighted those areas as well with that darker tone, just adding in again quite a bit of color variation. You can see really subtle additions of like purplish tones and stuff throughout as well, which looks really, really cool. As you come back down here, you can again lead down into the leg. You can see a few kind of like osteoderms and stuff there throughout. You can also make out some nice muscle definition as well as some wrinkling and creasing. Almost gives you that look and feeling of a man in a suit, which is exactly what Baragon is. So that is definitely a nice ode to the original monster. As you lead down into the foot, the toes are sculpted out quite nicely as well. And you can see the nails also look really good as far as the sculpting and paintwork. We again have that kind of like greenish brown tone, and then we lead out to sort of like almost like an orangish tone there for the tips of the nails. Again, I really love his paintwork, and I feel like Creature Preacher is continuously improving drastically when it comes to not only his models, but also the paintwork that he applies. I love that he's applying, tones of color, numerous tones of colors, even to the nails and everything now. Really, really cool. And you can see just moving up through the course of the leg, again, so much subtle variation of color. He has done an incredible job on this as far as the paintwork goes. You can see a few more kind of skin wrinkles and creases there. Moving down the rear leg, you can obviously see that the Baragon is exactly as it appears in the films, where it's kind of a man in a suit, so it kind of crawls on its knees. So you can see that aspect as well is sculpted out here and shown off in the model. You can also see some more muscle definition running down the course of the rear leg, a few more again, kind of like osteoderms right there. And then as you lead out into the foot, you have a really nice looking amount of detail for the underside of the foot, including the toes. And you can also see again that the nails are painted in similar fashion to what we see on the front foot. And then we lead out into the tail. You've got, again, some more kind of slight creasing, some more really nice skin texture. You can even see the ridges, again, running along the back of the tail there, the upper part of the tail. And you can also see the tail leads upward as far as the positioning goes. You're not really going to see too much difference over here because primarily our Baragon is kind of just sitting there, not really running or anything like that. It's not creating any kind of like a drastic difference as far as the pose goes. But of course, we do want to take a look at how nice everything looks over here compared to the initial side, and it really does look excellent in every area. Again, with the positioning not being too far off, sculpt-wise, it's going to look just as beautiful, just as consistent as what we saw on the initial side, but the paintwork, again, is really phenomenal on every area of this Baragon. So yet again, another super impressive model from Creature Preacher. I love the fact that I now have a Baragon in my collection because I actually did not have any Baragon models at all prior to this. So that in its own right is really exciting, but having one from Creature Preacher, in my opinion, is even more exciting because I have a major soft spot for Creature Preacher's work. So anytime I can get a new Creature Preacher model, it's always a great day, but especially if it's something that I don't have prior, which is usually the case because he always creates the coolest stuff, but a Baragon model is awesome. And we also have, again, the smaller version, which you can see is much, much smaller, but you can also see how beautiful the actual print quality is here of this version of the Baragon. The quality is really well done, really vibrant as far as the sculpt goes. It shows off everything detail-wise that he had put into this, and just again is really cool to have it in a smaller size. But look at how neat that tone of color is. I really love that coloration. It's actually going to pain me if I paint over this because I'm just so in love with the appearance to this really cool version, this unpainted version. Definitely awesome to have, again, different size ranges. I may paint this because I kind of want to, but at the same time, I may not. We'll just have to wait and see what the future holds because I, again, really like the color of this, but we'll just have to wait and see. Regardless, it's always awesome that Creature Preacher offers his models in various sizes, various different options as you have, again, painted and unpainted as well. But definitely a really, really cool Baragon model. Now, as far as a size goes for our Baragon, for a length from the tip of the horn to the tail, even though my tape measure is apparently dying, everything's fading off of it because I've used it so much, but you were looking at about 9 3/4 inches or around 24.5, closing in on 25 centimeters. And then for a height, the highest point I think would probably be the horn as well. You were looking at just shy of about 4 3/4 inches or a little over 12 centimeters. Now that's for the larger version. For the smaller version, things are going to be a bit different. Lengthwise, you're looking at about 4 3/4 inches, just shy of actually 4 3/4 inches, or about 12 centimeters. And then height-wise, again, to the top of the horn, about 2 1/4 inches, or a little under 6 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Baragon model from Creature Preacher. And hopefully you'll have one of these figures, because honestly I don't have all that many Kaiju figures down here in my Dinosaur dungeon readily available. The majority of the Kaiju figures that I have are unfortunately usually in storage, or I end up passing them on to my son because he is the biggest Kaiju fan that I've ever met. But these Creature Preacher figures will absolutely be staying down here getting displayed somewhere, because I can't let go of any Creature Preacher model no matter what. So of course, the Baragon will be sticking around down here in my collection room, but I'm actually really excited to show it to my son. He's probably going to lose his mind once he sees it, because again, the fact that Baragon has appeared in the Godzilla films, and Godzilla films are like his favorite thing in the world, he's really going to go crazy seeing this Baragon. But again, I don't have very many figures, I think, at this point that I can compare it with as far as Godzillas and stuff, because they're all up on his display shelf. But for another comparison, here we have a plethora of randoms, maybe a little bit too many in here, as we have the Schleich Diabloceratops, the Safari LTDU Tyrannus, the Collect A Deluxe Dimetrodon, and the Beasts of the Mesozoic Zuniceratops, all here kind of surrounding our Baragon figures. And hopefully one of these figures you might have to help give you an idea of the size of this beautiful Baragon set. And then when it comes to Creature Preacher models, we have the Carnotaurus that I recently reviewed of Creature Preacher here as well, to show you this is like a standard size kind of theropod Creature Preacher size range for his models. He does release quite a few in this sort of size range as far as the Carnotaurus goes, so if you have purchased one in the past, then maybe you'll have an idea of the size here of the Baragon, and the fact that the larger one is definitely quite sizable, and the smaller one is pretty much exactly where you would expect it to be. But for another comparison, there is the Creature Preacher Crater Lake Monster as well next to our Baragon. Again, just to give you one last comparison of a Creature Preacher model with a Creature Preacher model. So if you happen to have the Crater Lake Monster, then hopefully this will help to give you an idea of the size of this Baragon. So this brand new Baragon from Creature Preacher is absolutely epic, like in every possible way. Definitely really awesome to now officially have a giant monster from Creature Preacher in my collection. Obviously, I've had other similar, models in the past. When you look at the last Dinosaur as a guy in a suit, so it's kind of similar to what a giant monster type of a figure would be in a Godzilla film, or again in Frankenstein Conquers the World, which is where Baragon first appeared. But the fact that I have an actual official giant monster from Creature Preacher is super, super exciting. And he's done a really good job on this, again, giving it that kind of almost adorable look. And on top of that, he's also given it his own little touch as far as the Creature Preacher style goes. And he does this with a lot of his models that he releases, where you can look at it and you can be like, wow, that's a really good, really cool rendition of that monster, but it has Creature Preacher's own personal touch to it, which I really love, because it's almost like the calling card of Creature Preacher, which again is something I really greatly enjoy. But as far as the sculpt, again, it's really nice, really highly detailed overall, sports a ton of kind of like structure and like skin wrinkles and all sorts of detail throughout that really shows off the appearance of Baragon very nicely. And on top of that, I like the fact that it's kind of just a nice neutral pose where the Baragon is just kind of sitting still, kind of just hanging out, but the paintwork on it is phenomenal. There are so many different tones of color, like super, super impressive paintwork on this, giving it an extremely highly detailed paint job with, again, all sorts of varying tones of color, even in the toenails and the horns. Everything is just painted up to the absolute most high quality way. And again, the fact that he offers this in larger and smaller versions is always really exciting, something that I think will appeal to many. And as a whole, again, this is just another incredible addition to my collection, to my Creature Preacher collection that I enter into my collection with pride. So if you would like to pick one of these up for yourself, I will include a link in the description to the Creature Preacher Etsy shop where he sells these. I will also include a link in the description to Creature Preacher's Instagram, where I highly recommend you follow him to stay up to date on everything he's working on and everything he's releasing. And again, check out the Etsy shop, grab yourself this Baragon or any of the other models because he has tons of stuff up there currently, and definitely grab something because Creature Preacher is probably one of my favorite artists right now, one of my favorite sculptors, and again, I highly recommend his work. I think you'll be really happy if you purchase one of his models. So make sure you do that. Make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.